Yeah, we are. All right, you go ahead first.
All right, I'm Justin from Prototyping Technologies, Proto-Tech for short. I got Bryant Stillwell with me. We're just here to discuss a lot of EFI issues that you guys are seeing. As you know, we do a lot of more so of ACES than anything else. We're here for questions, tech tips, anything you might have. Brian, I'll let you go ahead, introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Brian from Nomadic Dyno. A lot of you may or may not know me or have been tuned by me already, as well as Justin. Um, Justin and I have kind of halfway worked together on ACE stuff for the last, I don't know, year and a half or so. We've done a lot of um, screwing around and finding out on ACE
Right.
systems to see what works and what doesn't, um, and continually trying to make it better too, or find anything we can to fix on it to send up the chain. So all of your input or questions always help. We can send those to the right channels or even just help answer it if we already know the answer.
Definitely. And a lot of those questions and stuff that you guys have, I know we see a lot of things like, well, there's no manual or how do you do wire a PDM? It's important to go to acesefi.com and look at the resource pages because they do have the documentation there now that's available. I know I get that question a lot. Um,
Absolutely.
and then, as you know, we do a lot of remote tuning. I guess, Ryan, if you want to go ahead and talk about that, how that process works for you, and then I'll discuss it.
Sure.
How I do it myself, and
Yep.
and I'm sure you'll see a lot of common similarities.
Yeah. So remote tuning's not as overwhelming as it might seem if you've never done it before. Um, the there's certain things you have to have ready on your vehicle, just like you would taking it to a dyno or anywhere else or a racetrack. It has to be ready to a point. Now, you can have it to where you just need a baseline before you get your transmission set up and all that stuff. That's also doable remotely. Um, Main thing is you'll need a Windows laptop, Windows 10 or 11, and then you'll need I use a program called AnyDesk. I think Justin does too.
Yeah, I use the
And
same.
yep, and then the ASUS software. And as long as you don't have any firewall or anything weird blocking it, you'll get an address number. And I have a video on it already as well. Um, as soon as I get that address number or Justin gets it, we can log in, you'll accept, and then we take control and we'll give you commands on whether we need the key on or off, things like that, or when what you need to do with the throttle, driving, any of that stuff. Um, you'll need just basic tools for it, like something to adjust your throttle blade on, TBI stuff, and drive-by cable. Um, those type setups, drive-by wire, you can't adjust. So just that.
Right. And that's
Um,
kind of the biggest thing is making sure that the vehicle is started, at least it's fired over. That's kind of one of the things that I like to see. It really streamlines the process on the remote tuning side to make sure you have all your mechanical issues dialed in.
yep, and all your sensors are working. You got plenty of exhaust, no leaks, no vacuum leaks, all that. And I don't know about yours, but it's like, I don't know. I think 70% is a low number where something like that pops up during tuning that needs addressed. Like they might have injector O-ring that's leaking or something
Right.
little that you don't really notice. But while we're tuning, we can really help pinpoint that stuff. We're used to seeing it and seeing what the problems are and how they look on the graph, uh, and just by input as well.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, a lot of issues. You know, ACES will have, three different, a stock, a mild, and a race setting. And, usually somebody will have a truck North cam or something, and I'll just like, oh, it's straight race, when really stock application works best. And really, no matter how aggressive it is, I always use stock. And then
I did the
I'll
same
adjust
thing.
the VE and the MBT tables accordingly. It's just easier for me. And then The things you notice, like, if you do mild or race, the VE numbers have been, you know, adjusted, but then you have a fuel offset of 55%. So, whatever it's adding to, it's taken away. So, um, that's the other reason why I usually use this stock and 100% myself.
Yeah, I do the same thing. About the only times I'd ever leave it on mild or something is if I'm just basically doing a touch up for somebody and it's already
Right.
super close on
Yeah,
mild
it's
now.
close.
Yeah. Then you just work on the modifiers and everything. Which that's the another point with all these companies that advertise self-tuning, self-learning, whatever you want to call it. They're only talking about a long-term fuel trim, like your similar to what an OEM does. It has a short-term and long-term. That's the same as closed loop and learn for aftermarket. So all it can do is match your VE table to your target AFRs. Everything else has to be manually done. So
Right.
it's very limited on what they can do. I know the way they have to market them is kind of stuck how it is, or nobody would sell anything.
Right.
So
Exactly.
just
And
food for
and that's the
thought there.
thing with those, especially with, cam cars is, on a lot of these, I'll go in and I'll see that the AFR is set to simple instead of 2D table. So,
Hmm.
if you do have aggressive cam or you're having issues, is go ahead and set up that AFR table accordingly, and then adjust that so that relationship between the VE and the targeted AFR, you can really dial in those numbers that you're trying to hit.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, same with the timing. Having the timing on simple mode, if you're using time control on like the oil flush drain, the TBIs, that's how they come. I think the second gen ECUs are actually on 2D. But anyways,
yeah,
having it on simple with the timing, they go straight from your idle to your cruise time, your idle to wide open transition is just right there.
yeah, you can
And
really
not
feel it.
engines, they don't. Yeah, so um, if you're using timing control, absolutely set up 2D tables immediately and update your firmware. Because the
Yeah,
new firmware, the timing values are at least safer. The old firmware from like, let's say November 25 and prior, the timing tables on the everything but the jackpot really are way too aggressive. If you just
exactly.
switch it to 2D, it's way too hot. Um, One of the main questions I get when before remote tuning is on updating firmware. On the ACES website, when you go to the downloads and apps, or I'm sorry, downloads and I think it's under firmware. Let me look. But yeah, there's a you have your different monitors that you're looking at, and there's a video clip. It's just a or link. It's just a tiny link right above the monitors. That is a video that Tim made that goes over updating the firmware on all of them. I think I honestly haven't watched the whole thing to the end, but
Right.
he goes over updating the firmware in that, and then I have a couple videos using the new 5-inch and the 8-inch updating the firmware as well. So there are resources out there for it, and one of them's right on the ACES page.
Right. And with people are like, well, how do I connect or what it I see this a lot, people they'll take a 5 inch and they'll see the USB port and then they'll try to go,
Mhm.
straight to this and then this into a computer. That
Yeah.
doesn't work. You have to actually unplug this device and use the CAN
Oh yeah,
USB
you have
port.
one on you. It's just gonna grab
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
So yeah, you
Yeah.
actually have to use this.
Hold that up a little closer so people can
Yeah,
see that
you can see it.
that's the cable we're talking about. That is the one you need for remote tuning, hooking up to your laptop for anything with the computer.
You'll disconnect the handheld and plug this in its place.
Yeah. So when you're doing an install and you're tucking your harness, making it all pretty, make sure that's accessible or at
Right.
least put an extension on it. Some people make their own extensions. If you don't want to, Aces sells them as well. Um,
It's usually tucked up behind the firewall or underneath the
Yeah,
dash, and you're like, "Where's it at?"
behind someone's AC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's same for the 8-inch and other generations of the handheld is you actually have to physically unplug that from the main harness and use that CAN USB cable. So I
Mhm.
get that a lot. It's like, why isn't it updated or why can't I connect? And they'll have a USB-C cable, plugged to the top of the handheld and
Yeah.
straight to the computer. And
Yeah. I've ran
it
into
just
that
doesn't work.
quite a few times too. Wish it did. That'd be
Yeah,
handy,
it would be nice,
and it would be
for sure.
a lot quicker. Um, Also, when you do update your handheld and you're trying to update the firmware and the ECU, it's a two-step process. You got to update the handheld and then the ECU from the
Right.
handheld. Updating just the ECU with the flash drive, or I'm sorry, updating just the handheld with the flash drive doesn't do anything to the ECU.
Yeah.
So,
And a lot of times you'll get the mismatch error, the
yeah,
yellow banner across the handheld, and same for
yep,
if we update the ECU remotely, using the CAN USB cable, you'll still have to physically go back and update the handheld, or
yep,
get a mismatch firmware.
yep. And it'll still function, but you'll get that annoying yellow banner.
Yeah, right,
And it depends on how much of a spread of the firmware too. Like if it's just one version, it's usually fine and just gives the yellow banner. If it's like 5 versions, then it might not work at all.
right.
But yeah, like you said, we'll update them most of the time remotely through the laptop software. Just
Yeah, if it's TBI, remote, it's almost like the first step for me now.
yeah, yeah.
Especially since all the timing fixes that have been modified on the back end. So
And sometimes you don't know what someone's done on the handheld in the 1D tables and weird
yeah,
settings. So you don't want to chase something that you normally don't look at that got adjusted. Uh,
right.
yeah.
That's happened to me many times before. It's like
Mhm.
they made these changes and they're not transparent about it,
Yeah.
and then you're 5 or 6 revisions in, and you're like, I'm just starting over. So
Yeah. You
I've had
find that
that
one
several
table, it's
times.
like, they completely botched this. Cool.
Yeah,
All right. Um, that's another thing too. Like if you are screwing around with it yourself and you have come to a point of no return where you can't get it to work right, you can reset it to factory settings by just updating the ECU. Um,
right.
so don't be afraid to screw around with things. It's easy to reset. Just main thing, be careful with this timing. Be very careful with that.
Exactly.
The rest
And
will just make it run worse.
with the jackpots and the other systems that require additional map center is make sure that thing's set up and scaled
Mhm.
accordingly. I've had many instances where even coming to the shop where they would come in and the oil was reeking a fuel smell, and you drain the oil and it's got 2 gallons of fluid that come out of,
Yeah.
something that should have 6 quarts. So it just make sure your map sensor values are accordingly, and you can do that by your field elevation and converting the KPA. Most of the time, especially in the eastern or southeastern area where I'm at, it's you're going to be somewhere around 98 to 100 kPa, and you have that the BAP barometric air pressure sensor also. That should align with the kPa, so make
Yeah.
sure
It should
those
be
are
cool.
close, and
As long
that'll
as
tell you.
the BAP is working, 'cause every now and then you'll see the BAP stuck at 115, and then you just kind of gotta go off elevation at that point.
Right,
But yeah, so like he was saying, sea level or close to is going to be in that like 98 to 103, depending on time of year. And then like where I'm at 3,300 feet. It's between 88 and 90,
right,
depending on the time of year. And then just 6,000 feet works out to like 83 or 84. So just keep that in mind, especially when you're reading Facebook posts and everyone's chiming in about it needs to be 14.5 psi. That's true for someone that lives on sea level,
right,
folks too.
exactly.
Uh, but yeah, there are a lot of people that live in the mountains with these too. Uh, so yeah, just food for thought when there's arguments on Facebook on what it should be.
Yeah,
It does depend on
exactly.
where you live.
Yeah, it's relative to your elevation. So
Yeah. And same thing, if you are at a higher elevation, you're building tables, you got to keep in mind, unless you're boosted or something, but if you're naturally aspirated at higher elevation, like for me, I have to set my wide open throttle timing and fueling at 90 kPa versus 100. So you don't want to have, like, let's say someone lives at 7,200 feet and they're at 80 kPa. If you were to use the base settings and you look at it, the timing is a lot spicier at 80 kPa than 100 because the defaults are set up for sea level. Um, so you just gotta keep an eye on that. If you are at elevation, there's more things to look out for with the
Exactly.
base settings.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll put some guidelines out. I've been, you know, requesting a baseline center video, that they would post, or you know, some literature inside shipping these units, so people could just do a quick center check. It'd save a lot of headaches and spark plugs and changing the
Mhm.
rules, just verifying your sensor data. A lot of
Yeah,
everybody's always excited to get the first hit and the first start,
yeah,
and it's very critical just to make sure that that sensor data is reading accordingly, especially with intake
absolutely.
air temperature. Plug that thing in, or modify some
Yeah.
cables. So it's gotten better. It used to default to -40, and then you're like, well, why is it flooding out everything? And
Hmm.
that's the first thing
Yeah.
I would usually look
It,
at is the intake air temp.
yeah. See what's plugged in and what isn't. Even if like you don't have somewhere to actually stuff it in yet, at least plug it in and have it near where the air is coming in, so it's at least close until you can drill a hole in the tube or filter base or
Right.
whatever you have. Because yeah, the multi-port wildcard and Joker kits have it too, um, and it typically run round air cleaner. You just drill a hole in the bottom and stick it up right in there, and that works fine. Um, Otherwise, like the front mount throttle bodies, you got to put it in the tube somewhere.
Exactly.
Um, I had another thought and it ran away. Oh, when you first start your stuff too, you're talking about people getting really excited, just want to crank that thing off. A lot of people really like to have open headers when they do it,
Hmm.
or they'll have, that I use these. Well, they're not really the best thing to use. The collector flange that has the O2 bung in it that you
Right.
bolt on and your pipe goes on after that. I use those too, but people will just have that on it and nothing after, and then they flood the crap out of their brand new engine or rebuilt or whatever. Um, just throw some pipe on it, you know, 2 feet of pipe after it, and you
That's
can
what I
listen.
tell them. I was like, I want at least 24 inches of exhaust after, where you're going
Yeah,
to have to put the thing in open loop, or you're ruining your O2 sensors
yeah.
and going to flood out.
And I kind of recommend putting an open loop on the first fire anyways, just because you absolutely, it doesn't matter what brand, you can absolutely have a bad O2 sensor right out of the box.
Right.
So it just happens. Or if you're having issues with getting it started, like let's say you don't have the ignition set up right or anything, and you keep turning on and cranking it over, you're sending fuel down the pipes, and that fuel is going to saturate the O2 sensor.
Hmm.
Um, so just keep those things in mind. I've had full on original tunes that reading Facebook, they go ahead and they buy a Bosch two sensor right away, put it in, and they wipe it out just as quick as they would have anything else because of that same thing.
Right.
It's usually people's first O2 sensor that gets wrecked, no matter what's in it, because of the trial and error of setting up your first system, or trying to get something to run. And you just keep dumping raw fuel down the pipes, and that's not good for O2 sensors.
No, and it's more convenient to install at the bottom of the pipe, but make sure you're in the top half of the pipe, at
Yeah.
a 10 to 20-degree angle. It is inconvenient to try to, weld a O2 bung, in that, but, condensation and raw fuel kill O2 sensors. And,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that little piece of paper is in there for a reason. So
Mhm.
it's a good sanity check just to make sure that that's installed correctly with no leaks. And we can
Yeah.
quickly tell if you have open headers or leaky exhaust. It's
Yeah.
really we'll know within the first 30 to 40 seconds.
Yeah,
So,
as soon as the O2 heats up enough to start reading, we'll know something's wrong.
yeah,
And like you've probably done the same thing too, but I'll have it where the O2 sensors failed or it's open headers and honestly adjust everything off of pulse width and what we're used to seeing at
right,
certain RPMs and loads, just so that it runs good enough to get that stuff fixed. And a lot of times it's close, but yeah, you need that feedback to really actually get it dialed in. Um, Same thing for like if you've got a jet boat or something like that where you don't have hardly any pipe after the O2. Even if it's just for tuning's sake, your first couple times out on the lake, just throw an extension on it so you can get good data the first couple times, get it dialed in, and then throw it in open loop after that and party on.
right.
Jet boats are kind of, I feel like they're one of the easier because it's just, you don't really have any drivability
Yeah,
to
it's
mess with.
either
It's
idle
just,
or wide open. That's
yeah.
yeah.
So they're
Those
actually
guys party
pretty
hard.
quick
So
to tune.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's there's no in between. So
Yeah.
that I've
So
seen,
yeah, those,
anyways. Same way
those ones go pretty quick.
with the airboats. I've done a lot of airboats, and
Hmm.
it's they want them idle and sound good, and and they're just wide open. So
Yep.
it's 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 pretty easy to get those dialed in because there's not a whole lot of drivability with those things.
No.
So
No, which is nice. That's really the toughest part with tuning is drivability and idle and startup. Wide
yeah,
open's the easiest thing ever.
right.
Now that the firmware does its job.
Yeah, that helps.
Yep.
With the tip in issues that people experience, we've made recommendations to have the rate of change for the TPS and the map, just so that
Mhm.
comes on quicker, adding fuel, which has helped.
Yeah.
And then ACE has also released that tip in bog document, which is also on their website. So,
Yep.
if you're
Yeah. If you go to
experiencing
their
those,
tech manuals, there's a lot of really good help on there. And for people looking for what do all these things mean in the software, there's a pretty good document about that too.
right? Yeah, there's
So
lots of resources now, compared to when we first started, with
yeah.
ACES, it was like nothing, you had to, you know, as Brian said earlier, was screw around and find out. So we
Yep.
did a lot of that in the past, 2 years, 2.5 years, or
Yep.
time's
Yeah.
kind of got away from me. So
Yeah, I
um,
flat out wore out my Barracuda on the dyno testing this stuff. So
yeah.
it's hidden in the corner of my shop till I can afford to rebuild the thing.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, I got over 1,000 pulls on just the kill shot with that thing.
yeah. So
So it's
and
nuts, nuts that I
That's the
held
thing
together.
is like before you guys get it, or if there's a product out, Brian and I work directly with ACES, and we test a lot of things before it's ever released, and
Mhm.
um, we try to help ACES as much as we can, releasing them a solid product or firmware. So
Yeah, we try to
any
catch as
issues
much
that
as we can. And that's actually a really nice thing with remote tuning too, is it gives us the exposure that we wouldn't just doing local stuff.
right,
Um, I see a lot of weird things come up remote tuning. Like every week, there's something new that I've never seen before, and that's saying a lot.
yeah, yeah,
I did like, I think I did about 450 last year. I kind
mm,
of some of them I can't account for, so yeah, there's a lot.
yeah.
Um, this map actually, I was going to put pins on it and all the locations I did remote tunes. That's the whole purpose of that map.
Map was
I
spit on it.
just, yeah, I just need a week to put pins on it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's neat. It's with remote tuning's opened up a whole new platform and doors for me too. I'd be in
mhm.
South America, for one tune, and then I'll hop on United Kingdom or Australia, or do some on the East
Yeah,
Coast, and
that,
then the West Coast, and you're just all over the place, and you don't have
yeah,
to
it's
directly
crazy for
service.
scheduling too. Every now and then, time zones screwed up. No matter how much you try to communicate it, it just happens.
Right.
Yeah, I've got one in Cairo, Egypt, and one in Honduras that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
It's neat the places and people we get to talk to.
Yeah,
Um,
and the builds, it's just
uh-huh.
seeing the pictures of the build are neat.
Yeah, the Florida swamp builds are things you don't see in South Dakota.
Yeah, it is. It's like, oh, this thing's got 72-inch tires on it, and it's
Yeah,
to the moon. So it's neat to see those.
got a turbocharged big block that's basically looks like a picnic table strapped to the top of it on giant tires. Like
Yeah,
looks like it's fun to party on.
yeah. Yeah,
um,
it's neat seeing people's builds, and when you all have a unique build, we do send those to ACES, and a lot of times, they'll post them on their website, or they'll do a feature or a highlight or something on their Facebook reels. Um,
yeah,
if you have something
yeah.
cool, we try to pass it on, and and show ACES, what their products are getting used for.
Mhm. Yeah, Aces actually finds out about a lot more of customer bills than they realized with how much we send in.
Yeah,
Even if it's just data that we found during a tune or something, then like they're constantly getting data from more than even just me and Justin. So they are getting data to use to help with things in the future. It's a slow process. It always will be. It's just how it works with anyone, really.
right.
Um, Something I keep seeing is, or I guess I don't keep seeing it, but it pops up every once in a while where people mention having like a repository for tunes. Uh, I don't feel it's the good idea that some people do because I can't count how many Ford 5 liters and 350 Chevys I've done at this point. It's a tremendous amount. And I don't know that putting any one of mine in another has ever been better than just starting on a wizard with how much I have to change them.
Right.
So that's just if it won't run on the wizard, you either have something radical or something's weird with it. Um, like Justin said, sensor's not working, reading wrong, or you might have even just fat fingered the cubic inch wrong. I've ran into that even on my own. I put like, I don't know, like 800 for my 383 instead of 383, and
Right.
obviously that overfuels. So little errors like that. Also, once you get into really low cubic inch numbers, it doesn't really line up right. Um, so if you feel like it's a little too lean or too rich, and you've got like a 180 cubic inch engine, maybe try just adding a little bit, make it a 200 or something. Play around with that because once you get to the extreme ends away from like your typical 350, it, it doesn't quite line up. And that's where dialing in the VE table always comes into play. But when you're just setting something up, if you notice, like, man, this thing's way too lean, you can try that. And then that also brings up the fuel table offset. The only time I really recommend using that offset, other than E85, is when you're just getting the thing fired up and it's like way too rich or something. You need to knock a bunch of fuel out of it real quick.
Yeah.
It's great for that. But then don't leave it there. Get it dialed in because when you lean it out for idle, you're leaning out the entire thing using the offset, and now your wide open's probably 30% too lean or more.
Right. Yeah. That's what usually what I'll do is I'll load up the wizard, and I'll set everything to 100%. Um, if I'm starting from scratch, and then I'll go to the VE table, and I look for realistic numbers, and I expect these numbers to be this much at this much map pressure at this RPM,
Mhm,
and then I'll have a pop up window in the VE table, and then I'll sit there and I'll watch the injector pulse width, and I know that I want 2.5 to 3.5, depending on the build at idle, and I'll make those VE
mhm.
adjustments. So. it's important to get the VE table right before you go after any modifier tables.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that. It's like, oh, I got a bog issue when I hammer on it, and I look at the VE map, and it's the stock wizard, and then I have like 180, you know, tip in at 5%
Mhm.
TPS throttle or something crazy,
Yeah.
and then I'll pull that back to something realistic, and then get the VE table dialed in, and then go after the modifier tables because everything
Yeah.
references that.
Yep, absolutely. Same with like your cold starts, everything. So you want to wait till your engine is at operating temperature before you really dial in the fueling, because everything
Yeah,
beyond that is a modifier. So you have your coolant temp modifiers, your air temp modifiers, all of that. Um, and the air temp ones aren't as crucial until you get into boost things.
right.
Uh,
And that's the
Coolant
thing.
temp is your biggest thing.
If you get the VE table dialed in, and you're like, oh, I want to switch to E85. Well, just make that offset like
Mhm.
125 or 130, and like you're almost there,
Yeah,
and
it's pretty close. It might take a little tweaking here and there, and then your modifiers might need a little something, a little more Excel or something like that, but it makes it really close doing that.
yeah,
Um, and these systems do work fine with the 85. I've done several. I'm sure Justin has too.
yeah. It's just
Just when you,
it, it's important in the wintertime and cold climates is make sure you flush your system and don't leave it setting with E85 in it for 3 months, and then you try
yeah.
to go back in the spring and fire it up, and you're like, well, why isn't this running? And you got things leaking. So uh,
Also, if you are driving it year round and you live in an area where it's cold climate, um, E85 starts like shit when it's cold. It's
yeah.
just how it is. Turbo LS on a jack pod. My question is, I'm putting together an 8 HP trans swap. Want to know if the ACE system could communicate via CAN with TCU such as the Turbolimic or Max. I'm sure I mispronounced that.
ECU. Yeah, it's max ECU. I actually bought a 8 HP 70 for future swap. Asus is not currently controlling that. I put that request in. Maybe we'll see it in 2027, but I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. Turbolamic or Max ECU would be the best. If you're going to use the 8 HP. And then you can do engine control and trans control with the Max ECU. So
Yeah.
as of
Yeah.
now, the jackpot cannot control it.
Things like the 8 HP and the anything above a 4 speed basically is a lot more complicated programming wise for them to make or any manufacturer. Um, So those are going to be probably further down the road. Probably the next transmission control that we'll see is for Fords, like the 4R70 or 4R70W and those transmissions, because that's probably the second most popular after the 4L80 and 60. Um, yeah, and then what is it? The 6L80 is probably
Yeah,
real
right.
soon on the priority list, not soon on release.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we put these requests in because, like, we want to see them just as you guys, because we
yeah,
pull with these cars too, and we're like, it just seems simple. Why can't we do this? And but we make those requests
yeah. We've been sending
usually
them
ahead
wish
of
lists for
of
the
what you
last
do.
2 years.
Yeah. So, but
The
let's see. So wait times on tunes, remote tunes are. I do a lot of things through email exchanges. I'm pretty flexible. Usually, if you can get me a wizard and fill out the forms online at mine's prototechllc.com. If you go to remote tuning, you'll see the required forms. Um, so if you go in and you fill those forms out and you send me a wizard file on the data log, I can usually get you something back within 24 hours. If you want to set something up live where I actually um, go in, we'll have to schedule, look at times, and go that route. That's usually a week or two out for me, based
Yeah.
on workload, because I can have anywhere from 10 to 15 tunes a week going on, and I'm sure Brian's the same way, if not
Yeah.
more.
With,
And
with what I'm doing, helping with my wife's store, I've been having to kind of pack them in every other week. So the
mm,
last 2 days I did 5 each day, and I'll tell you what, that fries your brain by the end of the day.
right, it is,
Um,
it's, especially as we was talking about earlier with time zones, it's like, I may start one at 6 a.m. and and I might be doing another one at 11 p.m. So
mhm,
there's I try to stay flexible as possible, especially with going the email exchange route. That
yeah,
works best for me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Usually, the only time I really need to hop on live is the first tune iteration. Is just to look in, dial in the idle, make sure there's nothing weird, verify sensor data, and anything after that I can do through email exchanges.
yep, yeah. Getting the as long as this, especially if it's running already and you can take a good data log, starting it off via email, like he's talking about, works really well. And typically better turnaround time than trying to do it live. It's the same for me, basically everything he said. Um,
Yeah.
I need to set up forms more like his, been putting that out for like 8 months. But yeah, we both have the same data. Mine's on nomadicdyno.com. His is prototechllc.com.
Yeah.
And yeah, we both have remote tuning sections that kind of cover the details, and we both have a lot of overlapping info, and then some things that don't overlap. So you might learn something from each of our websites and each of our YouTubes as well. That be mentioned too with the YouTube videos. I plan on going forward and making as many distributor engine related videos as I can. I think Justin's does more LS stuff than I do, or has more access to LS stuff. So
Right.
probably see more of that from him, and then we'll have stuff that overlaps. Um, just like we always have. But yeah, that's another thing. If you're having a hard time before, we don't mind answering questions, but we're also, yeah,
Yeah.
not really a better way to put. We're not tech support.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
we don't mind
We are
helping,
not
but like
ACES tech
we're not
support,
paid.
so
Yeah, we're not paid tech support. We do this
yeah.
for a living on our own. Um, we don't mind helping and stuff. Like even this morning during this, I've missed 3 calls already.
Mhm.
So um, it's very hard to get back on calls. Messages work well, but before you do any of that, check out our videos. See if we answer any of your questions on there first. Um, it might speed up the process on your project. We might have already made a video on it.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
there's
if you
just
have any things that you would like to see a video on, um, just let us know. One of
yeah.
us will probably make it or
We see
do
a
the best
lot
we can
a
to
lot of
make it.
ACES products, so
Yeah. Yeah. If there's an ACES product that you can put on a big block Mopar, I've done it. So
yeah.
we've got a lot of experience with all of them. And we both have dynos. We both have spent a lot of time breaking tunes and fixing them to see what happens. So,
Yeah, exactly. And engines.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I smoked a 440. I filled up my 383 all the way to the throttle blades with fuel when my I had a crash on my wild card during a tune, and my pump is on a separate switch, and everything's loud when you're on the dyno. You got fans on, ear protection, all that stuff. So
right.
I forgot my pump was running, and I could see fumes coming out of the top of my air filter.
Mm.
And went to crank it, not really thinking anything of it, and it hydrolocked. So yeah, I drained out like a few gallons of fuel out of my
Yeah.
383 from that.
Yeah.
That was not fun. Um, yeah, right now I'm working on getting together basically a junkyard 302 with aluminum heads and a turbo kit and a alphabet E cam just because why not? I know there's better cams. I don't care.
Right.
It's just slap this thing together because it's kind of a common thing when people do using the AFR enforcer heads, a junkyard small block, and throwing boost at it. Um, so there'll be a lot of videos on that coming up, as long as I don't wreck the engine the first day out. But we'll see.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. The ACES stuff that I have, we brother and I, we put the 6.0 in the Honda Civic, made it rear wheel drive. We'll have more videos of that this year, especially using the EGT functions of
mhm.
ACES, and then um, just recently upgraded to the Jackpot 2. I'll have another video on that showing the translation from easier way to do it now, going from the Jackpot 1B tables to the Jackpot 2.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll put that out there. It used to be a painful process, and now there's an easy format to do that, thanks to one of the community members. So
yeah,
we'll put that information out there too, as the second generation ECUs are getting more popular. Have been asking that question on how do I transfer my
yeah,
current tune to the second gen ECUs. So we'll
yeah.
definitely
I
get that
think
out.
wasn't Josh talking about that too? Them putting something together for that.
Yeah, he did, but I didn't see
I haven't heard
anything
anything else on that yet.
come of that. So, um,
Um,
but there's a nice Google Docs out that works well,
yeah,
um, and it's actually surprisingly how close it is, because I went through and I hand fitted the data, and then I matched it, to that spreadsheet, and you're talking within like less than a percent error, with me hand fitting the
it's,
data. So I mean, it was super solid. So.
when I converted it manually, when I was doing my CUDA with the first gen, second gen of the kill shots. On it, it wasn't quite a, 1-to-1. Especially the wide open throttle wasn't close. The rest of it was pretty close, but the wide open throttle was a little bit off.
Mhm.
But still, it's better than starting from scratch.
Oh, definitely.
The
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
think we're about running out of time.
yeah, we're coming up at
Yeah,
43 minutes. So, but yeah, we
yeah,
plan to do these more. Brian and I talk almost daily, so we bounce back and forth, and we'll put these videos out more. Especially as you guys have questions, we'll try to show you, and then do any screen sharing and functions of that. That right now is
yep,
just kind of a kickoff. Just
yeah. Trying to
thinking
figure out how to
about
get this to
tuning,
work.
seeing what we see daily, and hopefully try to answer some of the questions.
Yep. Online
Um,
training courses work. I don't know if there are any online training courses.
Not for ACEs, but if you
No.
really want to learn EFI, Evans Performance Academy is one of the best resources out there
Yeah.
that I've found.
And
You can pay monthly or you can buy the courses. He covers everything. He is, a brainchild of EFI systems, and by far one of the gurus in the industry, and puts out some really good content. Um, I've asked ASUS for a long time to hopefully have some courses at their facility that they could put on. Have factory direct training. Um,
yeah,
I don't do anything personally just yet. I don't know if you do.
no.
It's usually
I
is
don't
like I
mind.
need this to work, and get it working as fast as I can, and and that's
Yeah.
just kind of the business we're in. People have spent the money on these systems, and they've worked on these projects for years, and they're ready to see it running, and that's just kind of the market that where we hop in and help, not so much on the training side.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing is the time, having the time to actually do that. So hopefully
Yeah.
ASUS does something factory direct. If not, then maybe that's something that, we could offer once or twice a year. But, we'll just have to see if
That'll
there's
be a down the road thing for sure. Is that how you both got your start? I think we both probably got way different starts at it, and it probably started off as a hobby for both of us.
right.
At least it did for me. Probably the first time I did any kind of actual hot rod and EFI performance and tuning was like 2007. Then I went to tech school in 2010, and there were some hot rodding classes in that as well. I went to UTI in Avondale, Arizona, and took basically every class I could with a GI Bill. And then whatever I took from that, plus online courses, plus like we were talking about earlier, just beating the crap out of our own vehicles and seeing what happens. On top of any online course we could sign up for. I haven't done Evans yet, but I've done HP Academy and like Tune the Trilogy and a bunch of more aftermarket
Mhm.
related training. Um,
Yeah,
but
I started out early, 2000 in early 2000 with Honda Chrome, then went into Honda. Started with a lot of Honda stuff. Um, and I did that for several years, modified Honda ECUs. Then college happened, then life happened, and then a lot of my friends are hot rodders and, always, had an issue. And I've always been in the technical industry. So it just kind of, the stars kind of aligned and, and then
yeah,
we built another drag car and then I bought a dyno. And then, everything just kind of snowballed and just trying to feel the need for the market. It's a lot of LS swap stuff where I'm at. So I
nice.
do more of that than anything. And then the online resources, Evans HP Academy, Tuna Trilogy. I've done the Holly Direct classes. I do Haltech, Holly, HP tuners. I tune those systems also. We just tend to navigate more towards the aces just for the fact of
Yeah, filling the
just
void.
to help the community. There's
Yeah,
a bigger need there, so that's just kind of what we navigate it towards. So
yeah. Congrats on your award. Justin got one too. Do
yeah,
you have your show and tell with you?
yeah, yeah. I have mine. Yeah, ACES has
Yeah.
awarded us with these awesome the year of the horse.
Yep. Yeah. Neither one of us were expecting this. It's pretty cool.
No,
Yeah, we
yeah,
got
that's a
these with a pretty
pleasant
nice letter
surprise.
from the owner, and
Yeah.
it was cool to have. I need a shelf back here
Yeah,
to throw them
yeah,
in, so I
the
can knock it
highlight the
off there
awards,
every day when I get up.
definitely.
Yeah. No, that was cool. Um, Also got one of these new hoodies with it too.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
mine's upstairs. I should have put mine on and represented a little
oh,
better, but
I actually meant to wear my own, not
yeah,
theirs, but it happened. It's cold out today.
yeah,
Uh,
it's awesome. I love the new racing logo. The
mhm.
banner's cool and
Yeah,
yeah,
I
new
forgot
marketing
about it.
strategy. So,
Yeah, got to get that up too. They like I said, they listen to everything. They are trying. They've had quite a bit of staff changeover lately. So expect maybe some delays in the tech department, but other than that, they're still doing things. Um, did We're certain who got the third, right? Of those awards?
um, uh, yes, I think so, but I hadn't talked
Like
to him officially.
99%
So
sure, so I don't want to say it if I'm
yeah,
wrong.
yeah, there was three that was handed out, and you're
Yeah,
talking to two of them.
yeah.
There's hearsay, but I hadn't talked to him directly yet
I
to
haven't either. I
confirm.
keep forgetting
So
to ask him. Um,
I didn't want to give out any bad information in case I was wrong.
yeah,
So, but
same thing.
I'm fairly confident.
don't want to put my foot in my mouth on that one.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
we
I don't. Should we do this Fridays or Mondays? Is there a day we should?
yeah, I guess we'll just look and see what works out best.
'Cause we
We'll
kind of
try to
wanted
do
to
this
do
one.
Mondays, but we're always one of us is busy doing shit on Mondays, so
Yeah, it's
or every
always
other day
hard.
of the week too. Uh,
But yeah,
but yeah,
we'll put something out there, and that
yeah,
way the community will know a little more in advance than just popping up a live. But
right. Yeah, this was definitely a kind of a shakedown. See
yeah,
how things
definitely.
went and see if it actually works. I went and set up like all my studio equipment and then ended up having to do it on my cell phone anyway. So that was, that's that.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
we'll figure it out and get better.
you
So
know, appreciate the those of you that tuned in. I don't know if I was expecting anyone to see it, to be
yeah,
honest.
I wasn't
On this
either.
first
I
one.
didn't have questions, and people actually tune in, so
Yep.
it's nice. So, but yeah,
So yeah,
we'll let you guys know, and appreciate you tuning in, and y'all have a great day.
absolutely.
All right,
And talk to
see
you
you
guys
guys.
later. I don't actually know how to end this. Do you have to end it?
Yeah, let me see.
I don't want. If I hit this X, does it?